Hi, it's Stu from Project Marlin. Today's video is about power transmission. Specifically, we're talking about the layout of the power transmission elements of the Marlin. And as part of that, we're also going to look at farm pickup that belongs to the farm where the Marlin's kept, my van and one of the tractors. It's not any work, it's more to do with the layout and how the Marlin differs from most normal vehicles. We're also going to talk about, as well as the driveline layout, very briefly about some of the hydraulics, or about the 3 hydraulic systems on the truck. Although we're not going to go into a lot of detail because, quite frankly, at the moment I don't know how one of the systems works at all. I know where the components are, but I don't know where it all, know how it all integrates and what all of the bits do. And also, on one of the other hydraulic systems, I know what all of the individual parts do. I haven't currently traced all of the pipe work, so I don't actually know the route. And at some point we will do a video a bit more in depth about hydraulics, probably around about the time that we service it. But before we get into the video, what I want to show you is this. I don't know if that'll focus. So we've laser cut and engraved, I don't know how well that's going to show up, some Project Marlin keyrings, and also done little certificates to go with them. On the back it's Project Marlin, and if you can focus on that, it would be great. There we go. They're numbered. This is one of 35. Once the Marlin is done and we've actually got keys for the doors, this particular one is going on the Marlin door keys. They're laser cut in Mars red fluorescent acrylic. It fluoresces under UV. If we get the chance, we might have some more made in the future. However, this is the only batch that's going to be fluorescent red, and this is the only batch we're going to do that are numbered. So there aren't going to be many. Well, there's 35 of them. Some have already sold, because we did put it on Facebook the other day and on the community page. I think we've got 22 left. So if you fancy one and you're in the UK, because at the moment we're only shipping to they're only being shipped to the UK. If you look down in the description, I'll put the link there to a business called Elmer's Bazaar, who are selling these. In all fairness, I'll put my hands up and say the business is I'm actually involved with Elmer's Bazaar. And it's myself and my other half run it as a sideline. It was intended to be a sideline, and it currently still is. But these have all been made in-house. If you do decide to buy one, and again you're in the UK, we'll try and get them in the post same or next day. But that's enough about that. The link will be down in the description at the top, and we'll get on to the video, and first of all have a look underneath the farm pickup. Right, nothing to oh dear, what have we done with the camera? Right, nothing too exciting. We have the engine there, you can see the sump coming back underneath the exhaust. You've got the bell housing, then you've got the transmission, which is quite a big beast on this one, with a built-in transfer box. It's 4-wheel drive, and then back to the prop shaft and to the diff. Now this truck's automatic, so instead of a clutch it's got a fluid flywheel or torque converter. Apologies for the noise. Obviously we are in the end of an old grain shed, and the corn dryer and the cleaner and elevator is running today, and I've got the generator running for some light, so it's quite noisy. Hopefully you can hear well. First use of the Project Marlin whiteboard. We've had a look at the pickup truck, so we've got a nice engine here. In that case it's a nice big 5.9 V8. bell housing houses a torque converter because it's an automatic transmission, and a transfer case. These are all bolted together, so they're all one unit. You could theoretically remove that all together. In this particular model, the transfer case has a high and low ratio, as well as being able to lock it into four-wheel drive. That particular pickup is rear-wheel drive unless you engage four-wheel drive. Some 4x4s have got a centre differential, a bit like my old Land Rover you've seen in other videos. That's got a centre differential, so it's permanent four-wheel drive, but it only really sends power when you get stuck to one axle, which is why you lock the centre diff. Anyway, from there we've got prop shaft coming off, front, and that goes into the axles. So let's have a look. I can't see on it. Yeah, no, that's showing up, good. So that's basically how that pickup truck works. So we're going to go and have a look at the Transit now, because the Transit is a bit different. A very similar setup on my van. You can see past the exhaust there, that's the back of the gearbox. It comes along there, and then obviously there's a big heat shielding for the exhaust, but you see this cage, that's the prop shaft. Now the prop shaft on this runs back until it gets to that box there, which you can't see very well, I don't think. I'll have a look on the other side, see if you can see it better. So the Transit, you've just had a look underneath. You've got an engine, so your 2.2 Duratorque diesel. Horrible engine in my opinion. I don't like it, but it's a slogger, does what it needs to do. Bell housing on the Transit is a manual clutch, and on mine it's got the 6-speed gearbox, manual gearbox. Some of them have got a 5-speed. Now on a normal Transit, you've got your axle back here, and you have a prop shaft running between the two. Really simple. Rear-wheel drive cars are all like this, pretty much. So just think of an example: BMW M5, BMW M3, all the old Jags. Engine, gearbox, prop shaft, and your rear axle. So my Transit, like I said, is a bit different. My Transit has this, which is the PTO box. So the engine runs the gearbox, the prop shaft runs, and when you're driving, it runs straight through. And this does nothing. When I move the lever between the seats, which I've talked about before, that then disengages the drive to the back end and diverts it to a compressor and a generator in this housing. So that's, yeah, but I mean all of this that's mounted as one piece. That's obviously bolted to the chassis, the monocoque chassis, whatever, on the vehicle, and that's bolted under the floor. So let's have a look at the one of the tractors very, very briefly, because it's not mine. I'm not going to take the panels off it, but we'll look at one of the tractors quickly in the yard. Oops. Yeah, so is the tractor on one of the tractors on the farm. Engine's under the bonnet, obviously, quite simply. So there's the bottom of the engine. This one doesn't have a frame; it's all stressed through. That's the end of the engine there, the bell housing. The gearbox is in this area. You can see down in there, and then it goes to the back axle, which is obviously this rather muddy lump here. So I'll just draw this up on the whiteboard. So engine, gearbox. I'm not sure on the tractor what the drive. I think there's a normal clutch, but possibly also a torque converter built in, because it has a power shift system and a forward and reverse like clutchless shuttle, but it also has a clutch pedal. So without really looking up, older tractors all had clutches, mostly had clutches. Some had torque converters because they were built that way. But the unusual thing about the tractor, or well, not unusual, all tractors are like this pretty much, it's very unusual to find one that isn't, is your back axle. So you've got engine, gearbox, back axle all bolted together, it's all one thing. Inside your back axle you also have a PTO unit to give you hydraulic power and also PTO to run a rear mounted implement. So really you've also got that little bit in there. On the tractor we just looked at, off the gearbox, you've got that. You've also got a transfer box built in, sorry, because you've got your front axle and the prop shaft coming to it. There's been, over the years, there's been really various different ways of doing this. The old Ford Counties, they didn't have a transfer box. They actually ran from the back axle, a prop shaft down either side of the tractor. That's a completely different story. If you'd like me to do a bit of a talk about that one day, stick it in the let me know in the comments. So that's how most tractors are. 4-wheel drive tractors. 2-wheel drive tractors don't have this. Some of them have a chassis, some don't. The one we looked at didn't. So now we're going to go and look at the Marlin. The Marlin gets a little bit more complicated. So I hope that gives a bit of an overview. It is only meant to be a very simple and brief overview. It's just to show how most things are coupled together and how the Marlin is different. So as you've seen, usually the engine is directly bolted to the gearbox. The gearbox, if there's a transfer box, is quite often bolted to the transfer box. There are a few exceptions to that rule. 3-ton site dumpers, quite often there's a short prop shaft from the gearbox to an independent transfer box that's right in the middle by the pivot, but that's not a hugely common setup outside of dumpers, or not one that I've come across. Tractors, the back axle is normally bolted directly to the back of the transmission, and in fact sort of forms part of the transmission in some cases. So this is sort of the normal way things are done. So we're going to have a look at the Marlin now. I'm going to pull the cover open and I'm going to flip between looking at the Marlin and back to the whiteboard. Right, so up above the 12V92, there's the engine. Front half there, back half here. See that red blob under the air filter is the alternator, so you know where that is. It's actually belt driven off the back of the engine. Now, I'll just try and get around here without killing myself. If we look down here, you've got this big lump here, which looks like a flywheel housing. And in fact, it probably is a flywheel housing, potentially. But normally you'd have a clutch or a torque converter in there, but on this truck you don't. This is a unit that's referred to as the power divider, and if you see there, there's a prop shaft coming out from the engine. And in fact, I don't know, oh, oops, my finger's in the way. That there, no, it is, oh no, that's a pipe. Where is it? No, you can't see from here. Oh man, I should have planned this video out a bit better. Right, just there, you can make out the end of a knuckle of a prop shaft. That's the second prop shaft coming out of the power divider. Now if I go down, right, we're down under the back of the water tank. So back of the engine, air compressor, hydraulic pump. That big round block here is a power divider. One prop shaft out, second prop shaft out. And if we look down the chassis, you can see one goes down under the water tank and one runs sort of along the side of it. So we shall follow those shafts onwards. So following the main prop shaft, there's a bearing, sport bearing just up there. It runs forward, and I thought the light might have come on, but it's not. Goes into the gearbox here. So big old gearbox. This here is actually the torque converter housing. So if it was a manual gearbox, the clutch would be in here. It's not, so it's a torque converter fluid flywheel. So that's here. Then you've got the rest of the gearbox, runs forward, and at the end it turns into a transfer box. And this prop shaft comes back all the way to, I can't get far enough back, to the centre axle. From the centre axle there's another prop shaft that runs back to the rear axle. So the gearbox is a 7-speed automatic. It's made by a company called Renk. I'm going to get this wrong, so I will put the correct model down here at the bottom. I believe it's a HS72220. I believe it was used on the MAN F90 all-wheel drive trucks, as well as on the on the Marlins. Although it is the 20 variant, I believe, is fire truck specific. It's designed for running from the V12, the Detroit V12. It's designed to give a maximum speed of 75 mile an hour, around about that, depending on engine speed. But the main prop shaft that I've been showing you, that's up above my head here, runs all the time. If the engine's running, that prop shaft spins. So I'm going to turn the camera around and we'll look back up again. So again, there's the main prop shaft that goes to the torque converter. If we look, I can't see, where is it? Oh, right up there, that's the PTO prop shaft. So we're going to follow that forward, and we'll also show the front of the gearbox. So here's the front of the gearbox cum transfer box. Another prop shaft. That one is going to our front axle. Missing its handbrake. Now if I look up here, you can just about make out the end of the PTO prop shaft, and not a lot else. That's actually the water pump. So the water pump's up there, you can't quite see it. Well, it looks like it should have a V-belt on, that's for the primer, but this one's not fitted with a primer. So we'll have a quick jump in the cab and I'll show you the water pump. And you can see from up above in the pump bay, there's my big water pump, and there's the PTO prop shaft. What I'll do, I will see if I can show you sort of component layout areas on the side of the truck, and then we'll look at the hydraulics. And if you're interested in how the water system works, put something in the comments below, and I'll try and learn a bit more about it, and we'll try and do a video on that. So stupidly no tripod today, but if we walk down here, so engine's here, the power divider is about there, and we've got prop shaft all the way, oops, I'll go back this way a bit, to it's about here the gearbox starts, and it sort of runs to about there. Now the actual prop shaft for the PTO runs from the power divider up here all the way along this side, and the water pump is actually behind this locker, but the sort of front half there. Obviously from your gearbox you've got prop going to the front axles, prop going to the front rear axle, and then to the rear axle. So there we are, that's the mechanical drive. Slightly different layout because the engine's fitted remotely. Actually somebody suggested in it wasn't my video, but it was in a video featuring either this or a Barracuda, which are very, very similar in their driveline layout, saying that it was a copy of one of the Tatras, which is a load of rubbish, because Tatras, the engines are either under the cab or they're here, and the gearbox is bolted on the back of the engine like a normal thing, and it goes off. The engine does not live back there, and the gearbox isn't miles away on the prop shaft, so I don't think it's really a copy of the Tatra. That was a bit of a bitchy little duck and bob on it. Anyway, right, let's get back on top and I'll show you some of the hydraulic systems at the back, and then we'll try and trace them ish. So nothing really on the board. F for front, R for rear. I didn't put it on for the previous explanations, but the front of the vehicle's always been this side of the board with the engine at the front. Now the Marlin, we have a nice big engine, and fastened to that engine we have that, which isn't a bell housing. It's directly driven, it's driven all the time, it's a solid drive, well not solid drive, but it's the power divider, and this is what splits the power from the engine to the transmission and to the water pump. So transmission's the next bit in line. So transmission's there, and off the transmission we've got a transfer box, but they're not attached, and in fact they are probably 6 foot apart. So to get drive to the gearbox, we've got our prop shaft coming down. Now what I haven't drawn that's better. So engine, power divider, prop shaft, then we've got our torque converter, and if it was a manual the clutch would be there, gearbox, transfer case. Now in the case of the Marlin we've got 6 axles, so we've got the wheels are round, I'm just better at squares and circles. He says as he fails to draw a square. So we've got 6 axles. Now from the transfer case, the prop shaft goes down to this axle, not that steeply, and then there's another prop shaft here, one down to the front axle. So it's a bit of an unusual layout. There are other vehicles out there. I think Alfa Romeo GTV has got the engine, then the prop shaft, then the gearbox. Certain plant equipment do it, but it's not particularly usual. Certainly not for trucks, and it's not for cars really. It's quite an uncommon layout. So power comes down through the torque converter, through the gearbox, which in my case is a 7-speed epicyclic, through the transfer case, which is part of the gearbox. There is no high and low option in my transfer box, to a differential, so it's always driving a bit of power to both of these. If you get stuck, it will all just go one way. So in here there's a locking differential. In each of these axles, these two axles are permanently coupled, so there's always drive going through. So both, if drive's coming down here, they'll both be trying to drive. It also has, I'm not sure about the front one, I need to look. Back ones definitely have cross diff locks. So PTO. PTO on mine is the water pump. So the water pump is actually all the way over here. So from the power divider, we have another prop shaft. Because of the length and the angles they go at, this prop shaft's actually two, so it's got a joint in the middle and a bearing, and this one I think is in 3 sections. So that's the layout we have for driving the vehicle forward. I think we're going to talk about hydraulics now. Right then, hydraulics. Hydraulics on this truck, there's an internal system on the gearbox which has got external filters. I'm not going to talk about that for this diagram. And now, instead of looking at the side of the truck, we're going to be looking from the top down. So there's the engine. And here's the power divider. So we have on the Marlins engine 3 separate oil pumps. Bear with me on this one, because this is going to confuse me. We've got one pump up here, which is belt driven off the front of the engine. One pump here, which, although it looks like it's in the power divider, it's actually on top of the power divider and runs off the rear case. So hopefully, well, you'll see. And we have one pump here. Now, I'm going to show you the first bit of video about looking at the pumps on the truck. So, see you in a minute. So the first one we're looking at is just there. It runs off the back of the power divider. I'm going to scrabble down, see if I can get a bit closer to it and show you some of the pipe work. So there it is, pump. It's on that conical piece. There's the power divider, and if we follow it this way, it goes onto the PTO prop shaft. Now the pipes from that power divider pump run, ignore those filters, they're nothing to do with it. They run up to this unit here, filter, strange valve block, my head, into that assembly. That is what starts and stops the PTO. It looks excessively complicated to me, but I don't understand how it works. Basically, there's a manual and there's an air ram that move a lever on that spool which engages the PTO. But that's all any of that does, as far as I can tell. That pump down there actually takes its oil. I can't show you because I'm sort of cramped in here a bit. From the bottom of this housing. Those 2 filters there are actually for the, what are they for? They're for the transmission. They're the transmission filters, remote mounted. So I'll see if I can draw up. Actually, I probably won't draw up any of this because I don't know how it works. Okay, so what you've just seen is about this pump. On the opposite side of the power divider from this pump is the PTO that goes to the water pump. So this pump here appears to only work the power divider, and up here there's a series of valves and a filter unit that are all connected in, and they all go back, and that actually sucks its oil from the bottom of the power divider. How all that works, if you know, please tell me, because I really don't. I don't even know what oil to put in it or how to check the level, or it's a mystery. Right, so the next pump. Okay, so I'm sort of in the same place. I've lifted myself up slightly. It's pump there. It's above the power divider, and it runs from the auxiliary drive on the back of the engine. It's connected to this reservoir here, which is actually for the power steering. We'll have a quick look at that at the front. So the steering comes down to this unit here, provides flow to it. This is a steering box, and it's a power assistant steering box. So a shaft comes in the other side that's connected to the steering wheel, so when you turn the steering wheel it goes one way, goes the other, it moves this lever, it's geared. And there's a hydraulic ram and a set of valves in there which provide assistance to the steering. It's also connected via a pair of pipes down to that ram on the axle to actually give extra steering assistance. Interestingly, the axle's actually got a set of brackets for a second ram, and the axle's very similar to one I've seen on a Kalmar Wretch, but a Kalmar Wretch uses, this is a much bigger axle, and it uses 2 rams and no mechanical, because each wheel sort of steers independently, which is a bit weird when it goes wrong. But I'm digressing. I could talk to you all day about Kalmar Wretches. I did quite a bit of work on them a while back, and I do quite like them. So yeah, that's basically your power steering. Nothing overly exciting in that system. Right, so the next pump is the steering pump. This pump here. So this pump runs all the time. It's driven off the rear ancillary gears on the Detroit. So this one's quite a nice and simple thing. What colour should we go for? We'll use orange. I hope it shows up. Just above, up here, you've got a reservoir that goes into, and down at the front of the truck you've got the steering box and a hydraulic ram. So quite easily comes out of there, down to the steering box, back from the steering box, through your reservoir and the filter, and then the pipe's connected to the ram. So as it's pumping round, goes to the steering box. When you steer, the steering box has got a power assistance ram built inside the steering box. So as you're turning it, there's a valve in the steering box, sends oil to that ram, which helps move the steering linkage. On this truck, it also then diverts some oil down to this hydraulic ram that's on the axle, which you will have seen, and that also gives you assistance on the steering. It's a really simple system. Uses ATF, Dextron fluid, the red stuff. I haven't looked at the make of the pump, but it's a standard sort of ZF filter and housing for the filler. It's ZF steering box. It's probably all ZF gear. That I understand. Now we're going to go on to the third and final hydraulic pump up here. So the third pump is this one. It's on the front, it's near the engine fan. This one I believe is for the monitor hydraulics. It runs up to this filter here, and that filter is directly underneath a reservoir, which is this badger here. Yeah, manky. So it's 3 hydraulic systems. We'll have a run to the front and we'll have a look at these bits. So we're in the pump bay through the right hand side locker. That there is the electro valves that work the monitor. There's a filter there. I was looking for filters the other day and I didn't didn't spot that one. So there's a filter unit there, which I need to get the numbers off of, and I don't know if you can see, it's easier to access from actually in the pump bay panel in the cab. There is the bottom of another valve. That's the one that starts and stops the monitor from working. Then everything else in here is to do with foam injection, so we're not going to cover that today. Hopefully we'll cover it in the future, but I need to learn and understand what it does first. So from the valve rocket comes up to the monitor, you have a motor there for the slew, a double acting ram here which is the elevation, and if we go around this side, mind all the cobwebs, inside this housing connected to the shiny rod there is a double acting ram that opens and closes the mouth. All that is actuated electrically from this joystick, or where this joystick should be. So the third pump, this one up here, is to do with the monitor hydraulics. I don't think it does anything else. I don't think there are any other hydraulics on the truck. There's a reservoir and filter near the pump, and in what I like refer to as the pump bay, where all the foam system is, you obviously see, there is a valve block which controls the monitor. It's electric over hydraulic. There's a filter and there's a valve. How all of these are connected together at the moment, I'm not too sure. So I will have to trace pipes and have a good look at that when we start doing more work on that side of things. So yeah, I think that is about everything I was going to show you the layout of. So yeah, we'll go to the next bit. So that's a bit of a look at the truck. I know it's quite a basic look out of the layout and explanation of layouts and things. At some point on some of the parts we'll go into more depth. Some of the stuff I've not got information about, I just don't know about. Some of the stuff I need to make sure what I think I know about it is correct. The last pump we looked at for the monitor controls, I thought I knew how that was piped up, but there's a couple of things when I was looking at it and going to draw it up on the board, I suddenly went, I need to check this. So when we're doing more on the monitor, cleaning up, changing the filters, checking the valves, checking for leaks, that sort of thing, we'll go a bit more in depth in that. Same with the steering. I think the steering box might have to come off. If it does have to come off, I will see if I can find some diagrams and we'll have a more in-depth look at how the steering box works. The power divider, I need to find out about that. I have no information on it. I don't understand how it works. I don't have a clue how it works. I don't really want to start pulling it apart at the moment because I don't need to. It seems to work okay, but it does need servicing. I need to find out what oil it needs and how to top it up, so that's quite important. At the beginning of the video I talked about the key rings, so here we go, another key ring again. This one's my one, you can't have it. However, you can have one of the other 22 that we've got left. I'm saying 22, it's possible by the time this video comes out there might be less. They are £3 plus postage and packaging within the UK. When these ones are gone, they're gone. All profit from them, so the £3 minus the cost of the actual keyring all goes towards the Marlin, which is really cool. I'll put the link to Elmer's Bazaar to the keyring page down at the bottom, so if you're interested, that's great. We've also got the Teespring page, there's a link in the description for that. We don't really get anything very much from there, but it's still cool. Do the Project Marlin t-shirts, there's a mug, hoodies, stickers. We're going to look at trying to get some stickers made to sell through Elmer's Bazaar, which will be probably a similar price, cheaper postage, and we'll get more money from them is the plan. But that's going to be a little while yet. If you'd like to support the restoration of the Marlin without buying something, there's the GoFundMe, again, link in the description. Any help's greatly appreciated. For those people that think you bought it, you should sort this out yourself, yep, that's fine too. We will get there eventually. For anyone that wants to help us, that's really great, but nobody has to. Where am I going with all this? Right, okay, our social media is also in the description. We'd love to hear from you on any of those. Facebook group, Facebook page, Instagram. We are on Twitter, but we don't really use it because I don't really understand Twitter, and I do most of this myself. We'd love to hear from you in the comments. Always love to hear from people in the comments. I say always, most of the time we love to hear from people in the comments. I had to delete a comment a little bit earlier on another video where it wasn't even anything to do with us. It was just a spammer, unfortunately, but we do get them. Everyone gets them. If you enjoyed this video, please click like. If you want to follow our channel and you don't already, hit the subscribe button. And if you'd like notifications when we upload new videos, obviously you need to click the bell icon. Because subscribing isn't enough according to YouTube these days. We will be we're sort of reducing the amount of videos we're putting out at the moment, partly due to time constraints, but we are going to keep posting videos. Where am I up to? I will get there. Thanks for watching. That was it. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you've watched all the videos on our channel or some of the videos, again, thank you so much. The whole point of putting these videos up here is for people to watch them. And I think I better wrap it up before this video goes on for 3 hours. I will see you in the next video. So thank you very much, cheerio and doodle pip.